A very special hello to anyone reading this. My name is Kee Kee, and I'm a cat. Well, I used to be a cat. I'm human now, though, although I still like to do cat stuff. Sometimes I have a lot of trouble acting normal in front of my new friends and coworkers. Well, they don't know they're new. Actually, they're not. I mean, yeah, they're new to me, just not... You know what? I'll just tell the story. My owner was a quirky creature. I say was because he's dead now and it's kind of my fault, but more on that later. Anyway, he didn't get a lot of visitors at the house. He mostly spent his nights here reading or writing, or sometimes he would talk on the phone with his friend Dan. They like to make a lot of dumb jokes about farts and being old, but I guess that doesn't really matter as far as my story goes. So my owner liked to talk to me a lot, and I liked to listen. I think his name was Cody. At least that's the word people always seemed to use when they wanted to get his attention. He would tell me about his day, and I would tell him about mine, even though my days never changed much. I never really understood many of the words he used, like work, boss, or asshole, but he used them enough that I could tell he didn't care for those things much. Just like me and water. Cringe. I don't know what he really did when he was gone. All I know is that he was always gone for like 100 hours, and I couldn't wait for him to get back. Well, I kinda had to, but you know what I mean. One evening, Cody came home and he was way grumpy. I mean, like, mega grumpy. One of the assholes at his work thing, he told him he wasn't doing a good job, is what it sounded like. I'm a good cat, so I waited until I thought he was done before I started telling him about my day. I was in the middle of telling him about this bug I ate when he walked away. I could hear him complaining about his work while he went through the fridge. I thought it was quite rude to walk off in the middle of a conversation. I'd waited for him to finish, why couldn't he wait for me? Sure, food is important, but still. So, I followed him. Excuse me, I said. I was in the middle of, Kee Kee, be quiet, he interrupted, and then he went back to digging in the fridge. I was offended, to say the least, but in the interest of peace and food, I chose to let sleeping cats lie. I still let out a small meow of protest, though. Sometime later, after feeding time and TV time, Cody decided he wanted to go to the bedroom for reading time. This is how cats tell time, see? Everything has a time. Nap time, poopy time. We don't care for clocks. They're too confusing. Well, he went into his room, but he left the door open, which I took as a sign that I could come in. I think one of the lamps had come unplugged, because when I walked in, his arm was buried between the bed and the wall, and he was muttering something about those stupid, useless outlets. Naturally, I wanted to see what I could do to help. Plus, I can see better in the dark anyway. So I jumped on the bed and put my face in the middle of everything so I could see. And wouldn't you know it, he got mad at me again. I'm just trying to help you, I yelled, maybe a bit louder than I meant to. I knew I could see better than him, so I stuck my head in again. I'm not exactly sure what happened next, but when I woke up again, it was bright outside. None of the lights were on inside, though, and I could hear right away that the fridge was quiet. Way too quiet. I jumped off the bed to check on it, and for the first time in my entire life, I fell on my face. Needless to say, I was surprised. So I stood up on my hind legs to see why the bed had attacked me, and that's when I realized I was a heck of a lot bigger than I ever was before. Plus, there was a cat on the bed. So I arched my back and I hissed at him. Get out of here, I yelled. We both froze. And everything was quiet as we stared at each other. I had just said words. Out loud. Real words. I was people. Not just any people, but the best one I knew. And if I was people, maybe Cody was a cat. I'm pretty sure that's what happened, but I don't know how. I never got the chance to prove it, though, because the next thing I knew, the Cody cat thing, he tried to sprint between my legs. I don't think either one of us was as good at walking as we were in our old bodies. Somehow, with all the running and the turning and the twisting, we collided and human me fell on Cody cat. That was 3 days ago. I had to learn how to tell time really quick. He still hasn't moved. That's what they mean by dead, right? Plus, he smells now. I never smelled that bad when it was my body. It took me a while to figure it out, but in the past 3 days, I figured out how to turn on the TV and open the door that goes outside. I also learned that humans are apparently supposed to wear clothes. I figured that out the first time because the neighbor lady got super mad at me and threatened to call somebody named the cops. I don't know who he is, but he sounds mean. I saw a thing on the TV yesterday that had the same picture that Cody had on one of his shirts. I figured it might be for his work where all the assholes are, so I got dressed and walked around town until I found it. There are so many dogs on the outside, way more than I could ever see from the window. As soon as I walked in, one of the assholes started yelling at me. He said something about me not showing up for something called a shift, and that I better be on time for my next one. "You're due in at 10, he said, "and don't be late or you're fired." I got too close to a candle once, so I definitely don't want to be fired. And that's where I am now. I wish I could be Kee Kee the cat again, but I have no idea how I'd ever do that. I don't know hardly anything about being a human. I better figure it out quick, though. I don't want one of these assholes to fire me.